The Philadelphia Eagles are 5-0 for the first time in back-to-back seasons in franchise history. Hello and welcome into the EPA Podcast. We are celebrating the Eagles' fantastic start to the season this week. Got a special show lined up for you guys. I'm going to walk you through my thoughts from the Philadelphia game against the Rams last Sunday. Then I'm going to throw to an interview with Mark Schofield. You guys will probably remember Mark from the QB Sco show or the QB Factory show. He's done some things with Rachel and Michael Kist on this channel. One of the top QB guys in the game. We're going to ask him about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. We're going to ask him about Matthew Stafford, Zach Wilson. We're going to have a big quarterback conversation. And then I will be back at the end to give some preview thoughts for the Eagles-Jets game. But before we get to all that, let's get into our recap of the Eagles against the Rams. The Eagles win this game 23-14. Now, in the first half, this game looked shaky. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were on fire in the first half of this one. They combined for 129 yards and a touchdown on 9 catches. But then in the second half, they had only 60 yards on 6 catches. And the Eagles defense allowed 0 points and only 81 yards in the second half. I thought one of the big turning points for this game, the Eagles down 14-10, and they get the ball left with like 37 seconds left to play. You're just hoping to go get a field goal in that situation. But Jalen Hurts lays a beautiful ball out there over the middle to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown makes the one-handed catch, has a good run after the catch, and then he draws a flag for the horse collar tackle. And, of course, that ends up getting the Eagles down. Big chunk play, and then they get the back shoulder ball into the end zone for pass interference. And with 2 seconds left, time for one play, Nick Sirianni, in a move that's reminiscent of like the Philly special in the Super Bowl, instead of taking the points, they go with the QB sneak from the 1-yard line. And it gets in to cap that 5-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. They take a 17-14 lead into halftime. This was only the 15th time since 2001 that a drive went 70 or more yards in the final 45 seconds of the first half for a touchdown. So incredible performance. Tom Brady always talked about the middle 8, the final 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half. The Eagles executed perfectly to close out the first half and take a lead, and they didn't really look back in the second half. Let's start out and let's talk Eagles offense versus the Rams defense. And this was the best game of the year for the offense in terms of success rate and in terms of EPA per drive. The offense is finally starting to click. And I saw this stat from Sheil Kapadia on Twitter. You can go check him out. He's a great Eagles follow. But he said the Eagles offense is better than last year in both success rate, which ranks 4th in the NFL, and an EPA per drive, which ranks 5th in the NFL. And they're scoring more points per game by about a point through 5 weeks. And so people have been concerned about the Eagles offense. In the words of Geno Smith, people wrote off the Eagles offense, but they didn't write back. And they're finally hitting their stride here. Jalen Hurts accounted for 375 yards in this game, 303 passing, 72 rushing, and 2 touchdowns. 300 yards passing and 70 rushing yards has only happened 10 times in the last 5 years. And only Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson have done it more than once. So this was a special performance by Jalen Hurts. It was his first 40-yard rushing game since the Super Bowl. And I talked about last week on the podcast that the scrambling just hasn't been there. And I thought Hurts looked more like his 2022 version that almost won the MVP last year. He had 0.27 EPA per dropback. It was his best passing performance of the year. As a scrambler, he had 4.72 expected points added, which is the 3rd highest mark for him in a game since the start of the 2022 season. The only 2 times last year that he added more EPA as a scrambler were in Week 1 against the Lions when he added 5, and Week 11 against Green Bay when he added 7.15. That 4.72 EPA added as a scrambler is more than double. It's 2.63 times as much as what he added in the first 4 games combined. And he had a couple of huge 3rd down scrambles. He had a huge improv play to Kenny Gainwell on a 3rd down that was made possible by his legs. Jalen Hurts as a runner was fully back in this game. And so that puts to bed any concerns about him having a lingering injury. Jalen Hurts still has it. He was choosing not to run. And, to be honest, you need to find that balance. You want to use him as a runner. That's one of the things that makes him so special, but you don't want to overuse it. And so I thought, picking your spots well and doing it more out of structure than with QB designed runs is the way to go. And so hopefully they continue to do that. I thought this was an incredible performance by the Eagles offensive line. Now, granted, the Rams don't have the best pass rush, but they do have a guy named Aaron Donald. Maybe you've heard of him. And you didn't hear from him at all, other than when the announcers pointed out that Aaron Donald has a sack against 30 of 32 NFL teams. The two teams he doesn't are the Rams, who he's played for his whole career, and the Philadelphia Eagles. They were able to neutralize Aaron Donald. Every time there was a pass rush, there were 4 hands on Aaron Donald. They double-teamed him and just took him out of the equation. And, there were moments I pointed out on my all-22 passing review that Hurts is just standing in the pocket forever, like 4.5 seconds with no pressure whatsoever. On 40 dropbacks, Jalen Hurts was only hit 2 times in this game. And one of them, he rolled out of the pocket and he should have thrown it away earlier. He wouldn't have been hit. So incredible performance by the offensive line, down a starter with Cam Jurgens on IR. Sua Opeta stepped in and did an admirable job on the interior of the line. Another big storyline from this game is Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert had a slow start to the season, and it's not that he was playing bad. The connections just hadn't been there. He finally got going on this game. He entered the game with only 88 yards on the season, and he had 8 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown was a beautiful play. Opening drive of the game, they hit Goedert a few times on the way down the field, but then you get into the red zone, and the Rams had a single high safety. And so at the snap, Hurts looks left to keep that guy from coming to the right, which is where you've got 3 receivers going. You would prefer that guy to slant that side if you're the defense. But he looks left to freeze the safety. And then he comes back and you've got the running back going into the flat to pull down the flat zone. You had Devonta Smith on like a little sit route to hold the linebacker, and you had Dallas Goedert just up the seam. And Hurts threw that ball beautifully. I put the clip out on Twitter. You guys can go check it. He throws this ball behind Goedert. If he throws it in front of him, that's a hospital ball. It's going to be a huge collision in the end zone. Goedert probably doesn't hang on, but he throws it behind him. And Goedert has to he jumps and twists. And essentially what Hurts does is Goedert is moving to the left, and he throws it behind him. So although Goddard's still moving to the left, he has spun around and the safety hits him in the back instead of in the chest. Just beautiful throw and placement by Hurts. And that's a tough catch by Goedert, but he takes the catch through the contact and gets the touchdown. It was really nice to see Goedert on the same page with Hurts in this one. A.J. Brown also hit 100 yards in this game for the 3rd straight week. And so, when you have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, they're not all going to go off every week. There's just not enough yards to go around, and Devonta Smith didn't have much in this game. But it's so hard to shut down this offense when you have all of those guys clicking. Now, that said, the Eagles still have red zone issues. I think Brian Johnson's done a really good job so far this season calling plays. I think people were down on him unnecessarily early. But I do think he is struggling to find the right notes in the red zone. The Eagles are ranked 27th in the NFL right now in red zone scoring percentage, touchdown percentage, that is. They were 3rd last year. And I'm going to ask Mark about that in a few minutes, what he's seeing there. But from what I'm seeing, you're getting too cute with Kenny Gainwell. Brandon Lee Gowton put this stat out. On red zone possessions where Kenny Gainwell has a touch, the Eagles have scored 1 touchdown in 6 trips. When DeAndre Swift has had a touch, you've scored 6 touchdowns in 9 trips. And so you got to work that out. Keep Swift in the game. I know why Gainwell's in the game. He had some really good pass protection reps in this game. You don't want to run DeAndre Swift into the ground. The red zone is not the time to get cute with Kenny Gainwell. And my biggest qualm with Brian Johnson in this game, you're up 6. With just a few minutes left, and you get into the red zone where you would like to score a touchdown. It would be nice to have a chance to score a touchdown, go for 2 and be up 14. But either way, a field goal puts you up 9. You're up 2 possessions as long as you score. And so what do? In the red zone, they pull DeAndre Swift out. They put Kenny Gainwell in the backfield. And then on first down, you call a QB draw. Now, I like the QB draw, but if we don't want to get our quarterback hit, why are we running QB draws up 6 in the red zone where a field goal puts you up 2 scores with just a couple of minutes left? And if you are going to run QB draw, spread it out, go empty to spread the formation. But they have Kenny Gainwell in the backfield, and so it condenses space, and it just doesn't go anywhere. Then on second down, they handed it to Gainwell. They call a timeout, and then on third down, they ran another QB run play. You just don't need to get Jalen Hurts hit there. Like, there needs to be consistency. We don't want Jalen Hurts to take hits for 4 weeks, and we've got him sitting down for a 1-yard gain when there's only a cornerback in front of him last week, to this week calling 2 designed runs up 6 with just a couple of minutes left in the red zone. I just don't get that's not consistent, and Brian Johnson has to do a better job pushing the right buttons in the red zone. Another player we got to talk about is Quez Watkins. Like, Quez Watkins needs to be on the bench. He is an active detriment to this football team, and I know why the Eagles like him. They want to use his speed. The problem is he's a terrible route runner. Quez Watkins is a terrible route runner. You cannot trust him on routes over the middle. You can only run him deep or scheme touches for him. And if you're going to scheme touches for a receiver, screens, things like that, it better not be to him. Throw it to Devonta Smith. I mean, you have that 3rd and 2 screen to Quez Watkins. Perfect alley to pick up the first down. And instead of running between his blockers, he tries to cut it outside and he doesn't pick up the first down. And you see Devonta Smith fired up about it. You see Nick Sirianni fired up about it on the sideline. If you're going to use him to stretch the field, don't put him in at the 20-yard line, which is where that was at. He can't stretch the field. There's not field to stretch. It's all condensed. Like, Olamide Zaccheaus should be playing more snaps than Quez Watkins. It definitely shouldn't be like 85% of the snaps for Quez. There was another play that I broke down on the All-22 video, the scramble drill play where Quez Watkins was wide open in the back of the end zone, jumping up and down. I'm almost positive that the Eagles dialed up a double China 7 concept, which is 2 in routes and then a corner route. And Quez Watkins was supposed to be the corner route. And before the snap, you see him looking at Devonta Smith with his hands up, and the ball gets snapped. He doesn't know what route he's supposed to run, and he just runs over the middle right into the space where Dallas Goedert and Devonta Smith are. He killed that play because he didn't know what route to run. Like, he just continues to make mistakes. He needs dramatically less playing time. Olamide Zaccheaus should be your wide receiver 3. He should be the guy getting 75% of the snaps. If you want to put Quez on the field and have him run a 9 route every once in a while, that's fine. But he doesn't really add anything. His speed doesn't add anything because your downfield threat is already A.J. Brown. It's not like you need another one. And if you do, it's Devonta Smith. So Quez Watkins is redundant. Get him off the football field. You saw the frustration there from Sirianni and Smith on that one. You saw Jason Kelce being fired up on the sideline late in this game about a delay of game when the game's basically over, by the way. And I just love that. Like, that's the cult. People are talking about that. I see that as the culture that exists on this team. The attention to detail is huge. And even though they're winning, there's these little things that aren't going right. And they're upset about it and they want to get it fixed. And I just love to see that. So Eagles offense had a really good day. The Eagles defense, it was a little more mixed bag. In the first half of this game, the Rams had a .634 drop back EPA with a 61% success rate. A .2 drop back EPA is a good day. This was triple that. In the second half, it was a negative .614 drop back EPA with a 20.8% success rate. Overall for the game, this was the worst Rams game by success rate this season, and it was the first game that they had Cooper Kupp back, and I thought he looked good. And so what happened? What were the adjustments made? How did the Eagles take away what the Rams were doing in the second half? I'm working on an All-22 video now. It'll be out by the time you get this podcast, and the short answer is I think Sean Desai tried a lot of things. They came into this game slot by committee. They had Goodrich in on early downs. They had Rickson on passing downs. Neither of them worked. Cooper Kupp was dicing this team up. Then they went to Bradley Roby, and I thought Roby was a little better. They blitzed Roby a lot, by the way. That's a new development. And Roby is a good blitzer, but honestly, they tried things. They tried boxing bunches. They tried playing triangle coverage over stacks. They tried bracketing cup. They tried a lot of things. And I'm glad that Sean Desai was willing to try those things. I honestly don't think any of them worked. I think Matthew Stafford just sort of fell apart in the second half of this game. Now, there's reasons for that. Jalen Carter gets 2 sacks. Hassan Reddick gets 2 sacks. They're getting after the quarterback, and it sped up his internal clock. And so there's an element of that. And that's a win for the defense. When you invest in the pass rush as much as the Eagles do, it has to be able to get home and get in the head of quarterbacks. But there were throws that Stafford missed that he will normally make. I thought Cup maybe looked a smidge slow in the second half, like maybe he's not getting to the spots that Matthew Stafford wanted him to be. Maybe that's a conditioning thing. Maybe Stafford is pressing because he's worried about the pressure. Whatever it is, I thought guys were still open. And so I'm not sure that the Eagles secondary did as much as people think to tighten up that coverage. And don't get me wrong, Desai was trying things, and I love that. I just think the main reason that the Rams offense struggled in the second half was Stafford, not some adjustment that the Eagles secondary made. But regardless of what happened, you see a willingness from Desai to change things on the fly. That's really good. That's something that Gannon lacked last year. And regardless of why this happens, the last 5 possessions by the Rams went punt, 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 turnover on downs, end of game. They had 95 yards on those 5 possessions, and they did not run a play in Eagles territory in the second half. So for what it's worth, tamper the expectations for the Eagles defense to be stellar now, but I think it's a work in progress. And I think as Roby plays more, you're going to get better because he's going to get more used to the defense. And Nakobe Dean's 21-day practice window is opened up now. And so you're going to start to get some of these guys back. Hopefully Sidney Brown is back next week. And so you'll start to get back to health. Obviously, Avonte Maddox is not walking through that door. Zach McPherson's not walking through that door anytime soon. But hopefully you'll be able to get back on track. I mentioned Jalen Carter. He had 2 sacks in this game. He has been stellar this year. In the last decade, only 4 first-round defensive tackles out of 26 guys have had more than 3.5 sacks as a rookie. Jalen Carter has 3.5 sacks in 4 games. And it's phenomenal. It's unbelievable what he has been able to do. And you just think about this guy is playing on a team with Fletcher Cox, who Fletcher Cox wasn't on the field this week. He was hurt, but he's playing next to Fletcher Cox a lot of the time. He's got Hassan Reddick, who had 17 sacks last year, 19. I can't remember for sure. He's got Josh Reddick on the other edge. Jalen Carter is the guy that people are choosing to double team. He's being double teamed on 62% of his pass rushing snaps so far this year. And despite that, he is second in pass rush win rate among defensive tackles. He's first in pressures, and he's first in sacks. And I said 4 guys have had over 3.5 sacks as a rookie. He has 3.5 sacks in 4 games. He's not only on pace for defensive rookie of the year, he's on pace to be an all-pro in his rookie season, and that's just phenomenal. And then you see Hassan Reddick gets going. He has sacks on back-to-back plays, including that 4th down that ices the game. So encouraging performance by the pass rush. Hopefully the secondary, you marry that pass coverage to your pass rush, and hopefully that will continue to get better as the season goes along. So that's my thoughts on the Eagles-Rams game after going back to the All-22. You can check out some more in-depth analysis on my All-22 videos here on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. But enough of that. I'm going to throw to a break now. And when we come back, I'm going to have Mark Schofield on to talk about what he has seen with the Eagles offense and specifically Jalen Hurts through the first 5 weeks of the season. And we are back from the break here. I am very excited to have Mark Schofield in the studio, figuratively speaking, I guess. I don't know why we still use that terminology when we record everything over the internet, but Mark is in my figurative studio here. Longtime listeners of the BGN radio feed will remember Mark had a great show with Michael Kiss for years, the QB SCO show, rebranded the QB Factory. He did some things with Ray Shell. Now he is at SB Nation covering whatever he wants to. Football, hockey, basketball, baseball. It's all out there. Mark's covering it all. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Be sure to follow his work. Mark, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Shane. It is a fantastic Thursday morning. As you said, look, at SB Nation, I get to write about everything, which means I'll probably get to write about Bryce Harper's stare down later today. That was a fun game 3. As somebody that, look, I'm a Boston guy, so I have absolutely no dog in this fight whatsoever. But with, living in the DC area and Philly just up the road from here and making some trips to Philly, I've kind of grown a soft spot for the Phillies, I guess you could say. And Harper is just fun to watch. That team is fun to watch. Citizens Bank Park, man, that place is different. It is absolutely different. And that crowd, I literally, before we started recording, I watched the field level view of Harper's home run on like 10 or 11 times in a row, just picking out different fans and seeing just how quick they all knew off the bat that was a home run. And it was just absolutely tremendous. So fun series so far. Philly fans are probably loving life right now, a lot more than Boston sports fans are loving life right now, but at least the Bruins are started well. So that's good.
Yeah. So admittedly, I don't follow other sports much. And so it's always interesting to me. You get into like Phillies playoffs and all of a sudden my Twitter timeline's no longer about football anymore.
Right.
Because my stuff's all football and that's all the people I follow. But I mean, they talk about baseball when it's the biggest thing. And so I had to message Dibes and Mark Henry Jr., 2 guys I do the BGN draft show with, and be like, all right, what is the disdain here between Phillies and Braves? Because I just didn't know. So now I'm caught up on it. So I actually know what you're talking about, which is a rarity when we branch out of football.
Right. But that's why October, Shane, is such a good month, because you get obviously NFL, college football, those seasons heated up, college football, and you've been doing such a great job covering college game now this year. Like, we're now getting into conference schedules. We get Washington, Oregon this weekend, which, if people remember last year's Washington-Oregon game, that was an instant classic. This year's could be even better. But you also get baseball playoffs. We're getting basketball coming back. We're getting hockey coming back now. October is, for many reasons, my favorite month, but the sports calendar is a big part of that.
Yeah, we previewed Washington, Oregon earlier this week on the BGN draft show. Should be a great game. And I just have to say, since we're on college football for a minute, I got the opportunity to do something I never get to do the week before, and that's talk about my Oklahoma Sooners for the Red River rivalry.
There you go.
So we got to drop a horns down. Avenge the blowout from last year. I'm flying high right now.
You should
Both
be.
my teams are undefeated. That doesn't happen very often.
That's a rarity in sports, my friend.
Especially especially since Lincoln Riley left for OU. But all right, well, as much as I love shooting the breeze with Mark, we didn't bring him on to do that. Mark is one of the best QB guys out there. And so I wanted to bring Mark on and talk with him. I have a conversation about Jalen Hurts, about the Eagles offense, and recap a little bit of what he saw in the Rams game and what he should expect against the Jets. So Mark, I got a 6-pack of questions here for you. Let's dive in. So first up, through the first 3 weeks of the season, the Eagles offense just looked off. I mean, countless people were talking about it. I did all 22 videos about it. Jalen Hurts ranked 20th in EPA per play at negative 0.13. But in weeks 4 and 5, he ranks 5th in EPA per play at 0.33. What do you think has been the biggest difference for the Eagles offense in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the Eagles, like you mentioned, they're undefeated, but I could feel, because again, I have a lot of Eagles, Philly fans on my timeline, the sort of uneasiness about it. We did our power rankings over at SB Nation this week, and, Niners 1, Eagles 2, and our entire Eagles blurb was just like, it's going to be okay. Like, relax. It's early. I think a lot of it, and I've seen this, as a Patriots fan, when you see that sort of brain drain, right? Like the year they lost Weiss and Romeo Crennel to head coaching gigs, you get new coordinators coming in. There's that sort of feel it out process. And I think particularly Brian Johnson, he's called plays before, but not at the NFL level. And so I think there's a feeling out process there that they're undergoing, and that's going to improve. Something we talked about on the Monday Football Monday show, JP Acosta mentioned, Eagles have the best position group in the NFL with their offensive line. And that's certainly something they can lead into as the season goes on. So again, don't worry, it's going to be okay. I think the big difference with that sort of weeks 1 through 3 and then weeks 4 and 5 delineation with Hurts, and this is a bit noisy perhaps, but success in the downfield passing game. I think you look at weeks 1 through 3, and I pulled up some PFF numbers. He was just 3 for 12 on throws over 20 yards, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, adjusted completion percentage of just 33%, which was 16th of 22 passers in the NFL. And then weeks 4 through 5, 6 of 11 for 237, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, adjusted completion percentage of 55%, 7th out of the 19 passers. It's a small sample size, obviously, but that's a big boost. That's a big jump in the downfield passing game. You could see it on film as well. You look at the game against Washington, had some great shot plays. They had a fantastic throw, third quarter, 13-13 mark of this third quarter was a whole shot verts to A.J. Brown along the left sideline. Really good throw in rhythm. All 4 verts against cover 2. You hit the whole shot. Really good job with his eyes. He had some downfield throws, some throws in that 20-plus range against the Rams as well. Fourth quarter, that PA deep crosser to A.J. Brown working left to right. That came at the 9:18 mark of that fourth quarter. They've had more success in the downfield passing game these past couple of weeks, and that's helped tick those numbers up. And so, yeah, downfield passing can be noisy. You can have some good weeks, some bad weeks. But I think when you look at weeks 1 through 3 versus weeks 4 and 5, that's a big part of that jump in EPA is having some success pushing the ball downfield.
All right. Yeah. And I think also maybe a little bit of what plays into that is how heavily Hurts was blitzed over the first couple of weeks. There was less time for those things to develop. And that was one of my biggest complaints with the Eagles offense last season, their lack of answers for the blitz. It seemed like a majority of the time, Shane Steichen's answer to the blitz was Jalen Hurts, go make a free run or miss. And we've seen he can certainly do that. But Hurts has been blitzed on 48% of his dropbacks through the first 3 weeks. Obviously, it's tapered off a little bit in weeks 4 and 5, but what differences have you seen from last year in how this Eagles offense is handling blitzers?
It's interesting, Shane. It almost feeds off the previous point because last year when he was blitzed, average depth of target when blitzed was 7.6 yards. It seemed like you said the answer to the blitz was make a free run or miss and either take off or just get the ball out to the flat, check it down, replace the blitz, with the ball quickly. This year when he's been blitzed, average depth of target is 9.6. And so they've actually, instead of just taking advantage of the blitzes, they've almost leaned into the idea of punishing blitzers, right? If you're going to blitz us, we're going to go deep instead. We're going to push it downfield. You look at this game against the Rams, that big slant to A.J. Brown, with 17 seconds left in the half, that's a downfield throw and comes in the face of a man pressure scheme where you get man coverage on the outside, you tack on the horse collar, and suddenly you're in plus territory. But again, punishing the blitz by going downfield. Week 3, there was a play at the 7:37 mark. It was a 3rd and 5 of the second quarter. Another 5-man pressure. You pre-snap, you get that cover 0, cover 1 look. You hit Goddard on a big drift or a dig route. You've got the swing in the flat, and instead of where I think last year Hurts might have just taken that, you've got an opportunity to just get the ball out quickly, hangs in the pocket just that half second longer, punishes the blitz with a downfield throw. And so that jump in average depth of target by 2 yards might not seem like much, but it's a lot. Especially when you consider, look, league-wide this year, I think average depth of target leader is Jordan Love, 9.9, and that's on all throws. When you're talking about being blitzed and thrown for average depth of target at 9.6, you're really pushing the ball downfield in the face of the blitz. And that gives defenses one more thing to worry about because a lot of times when you construct blitzes, you worry like, okay, well, here's where the hot's going to be. Here's where the outlet's going to be. Like, this is kind of where we have to rally to. Now we have to worry about not just that, but potential throw downfield or over the top of the defense in the face of the blitz. Again, one more thing for a defense to worry about. So I think that's been a big part of how they've handled blitzes this year. And it's something exciting to see from this offense.
Yeah. So is that increased average depth of target? Is that a byproduct of leaving running backs in to block more? They've used Jack Stoll a lot as like a 6th offensive lineman. Is that where that's coming from, you think?
Because, if you think about it this way from the quarterback's frame of mind, like if you're getting blitzed, but it's more 5-man protection scheme, empty, or, a chip and release situation, so 5.5-man protection scheme, you're still thinking, I got to get it out quick. And so you're probably thinking, maybe if I get a 9 route, I'll throw it. Otherwise, I got to get this ball out to the flat. I got to check this ball down. I got to hit a sit route over the middle. But when you've got that sort of 6-man or 6+ protection scheme where you might have 6 and then a tight end chip and release or something, you think, okay, I've got a little bit more time. I can let that downfield route develop a little bit more. I can let that dig route from Goddard that I mentioned for week 3 develop a little bit more. I don't have to get it out right away. Now, what I probably should have done is looked at, time of release, snap to throw on these things. So, that's a homework assignment for me going forward. But in my mind, that's where my head goes. If you've got the idea that I've got more time to let this stuff develop, by 6+ protection schemes, you're going to take those shot plays. You'll feel more comfortable handing in the pocket because you'll feel I'll have the time to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's what you point out, because what I've taken away from watching the blitz, and I've seen a lot more out of empty and things, but the thing I really keyed in on is they've used Goddard a lot on hitches, curls. They've used A.J. Brown out wide on quick slants, especially when they've been out of empty, when obviously you don't have the option to max protect. They've had some of these real quick reads for Hurts to get it out. So it's interesting. If you asked me that question, that's the direction I would have went. And I haven't really noticed as much the max protect, but it's interesting that seeing those quicker throws like I've seen, but his ADOTs still come up. So that's really interesting that you point that out. I'm going to have to go back and look at that some more.
Yeah. And I think it speaks to, and this is something that I love about the Eagles and in a sense, the 49ers as well, the different ways you can beat teams with these offenses. And I know, Eagles fans, this offense has not been what they wanted to see, but when you can have quick game elements to beat the blitz, when you can have downfield elements to beat the blitz, like that's multiple ways to beat a team. It gets into all the different things that a defensive coordinator has to worry about when facing this team. And again, that feeds into my underlying point. They're going to be okay. Like when you've got, look, I'm a Patriots fan. Okay. Patriots have like one way to beat teams right now. And it's like, hopefully they turn the ball over 17 times and you might be able to get 17 field goals out of it. So when a team has more than one way or more than like 3 ways to win games, that's a very good thing. And that's where the Eagles are right now.
Yeah. I was not going to bring up the Patriots on this podcast.
I have
wasn't
to.
going to do that to you, Mark.
Look, dunking on myself, it's one of my many brands, and the Patriots have made it easy to dunk on myself. I'm going to have to start hiding all the stuff that's over my shoulder here, all the Patriots paraphernalia. It's just too painful when I'm doing a show to see it in the back of the virtual studio.
Yeah. Fun nugget for the people. When Mark and I first started interacting, it was during the 2017 season, and the Eagles and Patriots proceeded to meet in the Super Bowl. And I messaged Mark before as like, hey, I'm going to talk trash about the Patriots this week, but we'll still be friends afterwards, right?
Yeah. Look, and here we are, 6 years later, and we're still doing shows together and having a good time with it. See, there's bigger things in football.
Works out. Yeah, it works out perfectly. So,
yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about the Eagles defense a little bit and the performance of Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense, they diced up the Eagles secondary in the first half. They had a drop back EPA of 0.634 and a 61% success rate in the first half. In the second half, that changed to negative 0.614 and a 20.8% success rate. Mark, I can't tell you how rare a 1.2 EPA per play swing is between halves. Like, that's unheard of. What adjustments did you see from the Rams to help slow down Stafford and the Rams passing attack?
Yeah, I was interested. So charting that game out, 2-minute warning of the first half was the first time I saw a true middle field open coverage from Philly. Like, they had 1-0 blitz on a pass play before that, but then they finally got into an actual middle of field open coverage. And then you look at first play of the second half on defense, quarter, half. 3 of the first 4 plays were some true middle field open cover 4, quarter, half, cover 2. They leaned a little bit more into too high stuff in the second half. And I think, part of it was, you're wondering what you're really going to see from Cooper Kupp, right? What are you going to really see from this offense? So maybe you think at first half, Kupp's going to be a little bit limited. Puka's been great. Nobody cares about my fantasy team, but my favorite draft pick of all time is drafting Puka right now. But you may be thinking, look, they might lean into the run game a little bit, even though we got a good defensive front, obviously a great run defense, but you don't know what you're going to get from Cooper. So maybe you'll play a little bit more single high and see how that pans out. Cooper looked pretty good in that game. And so they had some success in the first half throwing the football. They had some success throwing against single high coverage. And so, all right, you reset things, you lean into some two high stuff a little bit more, and you start to have a little bit more success containing that passing game. Another thing that I saw first half to second half, a little bit more stunts and twists up front. First half, they had like 5 or so of those. There was like 12 that I charted in the second half, and they had some success, even if they weren't getting home for sacks, getting Stafford under pressure, getting some free runners at him, doing some stuff, some twist games up front. And so those two things I thought were really interesting, sort of taking a step back, charting this game out and seeing, some more middle field open stuff in the second half. So some more stuff up front in the second half. And that might be something to sort of think about going forward. You see that big disparity in first half, second half numbers. You see some of the things that had some success in the second half. Wouldn't surprise me to see more of them going forward.
Yeah, I felt like the pass rush really got into Stafford's head in the second half. It seemed like his internal clock sped up. There were several throws that, like, I did an all 22 video, and I pointed out several times in the second half, like, Stafford had touchdowns. If A, he had time to throw, or if B, he hit the throw. There was a couple to Cooper Kupp that they just looked a little out of sync, byproduct of not playing together in 8 months. So, the pass rush can cover up deficiencies from the secondary at times. And I felt like you saw that a decent amount on the back end of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anytime you can speed up that QB's internal clock, you're going to be okay as a defense because it throws everything off. And the Rams, there are offenses in this league that are more timing and rhythm based. Stafford is a bit more vibes based at times, but even with him, you get him sped up a bit, it's going to throw the timing of concepts off. And then, like you said, with Kupp coming back, they know each other, but still they might not be exactly on the same page as they would be had Kupp been healthy the first couple of weeks of the season. That's going to even exacerbate that issue even more.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get back to the Eagles here, and let's talk about the red zone offense. It's been a major talking point. Last season, Philadelphia scored a touchdown on 68% of their red zone trips, which was the third highest number in the league. This season, they're only scoring on 42% of their trips, which is 27th in the league. So, simple question with maybe not a simple answer, Mark, but what's going wrong in the red zone, and how do the Eagles fix it?
Yeah, I mean, it is an issue. Look, they're not alone. I mean, you look at Dallas, you look around the league, like a lot of teams are sort of struggling in the red zone right now. And whenever red zone comes up, my mind flashes back to the second game of my college football career. I was a freshman. Craig Ray, our offensive coordinator, who had coached at Purdue and Western Carolina, NCAA, and a whole bunch of different spots. We were struggling down in the red zone in that game, and he was yelling at nobody in the sideline. It's so damn hard to score down here. And it's because you get what I like to call 3 extra defenders, really, because everything gets tighter down there. Like, you've got less real estate to work with. You've got 22 players in a shorter compressed area of the field. Sidelines come into play a little bit more. The back line of the end zone comes into play a little bit more. And so, if you're a team that likes some 4 vertical concepts and things like that, you run out of real estate quicker. And so timing is at a premium. So it's just harder down there. Everything is so compressed. So Eagles certainly are not alone in this area. And that's something that, look, if you listen to Sirianni and Johnson, Goddard, and players and coaches have talked about it, they mentioned that. They mentioned that it's tougher down there because of the lack of real estate. So that's part of it. There's also the fact that, look, execution has been a problem, and they also talked about this. You get yourself into 3rd and 10 down in the red zone, then it's really tough, right? Because you think about the stuff you want to call. If you're between the 20s, 3rd and 10, you're calling some vertical stuff. If you're 3rd and 10, it's what do you dial up down in the red zone? The vertical concepts you might lean into in the open field, you're going to run out of that real estate really quickly. You look at some of their, drives that have sputtered down in the red zone, right? Like, week 4, there was a play down in the red zone, 3:08 mark of the first quarter. They dial up a screen, defense makes a good play, and suddenly it's 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11 down in the red zone, and you're behind the sticks. There was a drive at the end of the third quarter. There's 35 seconds left in the third quarter, 1st and 10 down in the red zone. You get 0 blitz. Hurts is pressured, has to flush, throws it away. You follow that up with a QB draw to try to get yourself back into sort of, a manageable 3rd down situation. They were waiting for it. Like they motioned to empty. Linebackers like basically calling it out, like pointed at Hurts and pointed at the motion. They knew it was coming. Now it's 3rd and 11 down in the red zone. Like that's going to be tough. Week 3 against Tampa Bay, they had a couple of different drives where incompletions on 1st and 10. You get a penalty on a 2nd and 10 play. Now it's 2nd and 15. Like you get yourself behind the sticks in those situations. 2nd and 15 down in the red zone. What are you going to dial up in that situation? And so I think it's a confluence of things. Running out of real estate, compressed field, it's tough. They've also had some lack of execution on early downs. When you get it to 3rd and 15, 3rd and 11 in the red zone, because of that lack of real estate, it's going to be tougher. And so I think the main thing is success on early downs down in the red zone. Like 2nd and 4 is much better, obviously, than 2nd and 11. But that goes doubly when you're down in the red zone because, again, the reasons we've talked about, it's just tougher to execute and get chunk plays down in the red zone. You don't have the space to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And hopefully that's something they're able to clean up. Small sample size, noise. Hopefully they're able to clean that up as the season goes along.
I think it was an NBC Sports Philly article or somebody pointed out that, look, they had a drive this past week where they were in the red zone but ran out the clock. They had a drive against Tampa Bay where they were in the red zone, ran out the clock. You strip those two out, and they're suddenly league average instead of where they are right now in the red zone, and it looks a little bit better. Now, yeah, you're kind of playing with stats a little bit, but you weren't trying to really score on those drives. And so, I think you could sort of view it that way as well, as it's a small sample size, and you strip those 2 drives out, and it looks a little bit better, and you're still 5-0. Like it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like I've never seen a team that, you get the ball with 9 minutes left and you just never give the ball back. The Eagles' ability to just drain the fourth quarter is insane. They did it last year. Shane's watching the Colts game last weekend, and Shane Steichen and the Colts get the ball back with like 8 minutes left, and they drain 7.5 of it off. It's just that ball control.
And that's
being able to sit on the lead is incredible.
That's just it. And I think that gets to sort of the overall point that it's going to be okay with Philly. They've got, in addition to the different ways they can win games, they've got a true trump card, right? It's that offensive line. It's that ability to sort of just work a game till its end, like to just take an 8-minute drive and just deflate the opposition and ice a game. Like that's something they can lean into, when the going gets tough, right? Like think about San Francisco, Dallas the other night, and the Niners get up. What does Dallas have as a calling card that they can lean into and say, this is how we're going to come back? We don't know what that is. Eagles get down 7-0, get down 14-0. Like they can lean into, okay, we've got the best position group in football on our offensive line. We're going to be okay. Like we don't have to panic. Like we've got a card that we can play. Again, a lot of teams don't have that.
Yeah, you talk about that, and I'm getting off topic here, but I put out all 22 video. That last deep throw that Hurts made to AJ Brown in the Rams game, like I put it on a clock. He had 4.52 seconds to throw.
Could have made a brisket back there.
From a beautiful pocket. And then you've got AJ Brown and the closest defender, 30 yards downfield, and the closest defender is 7 yards away. And I just said on the video, I was like, football is not supposed to be that easy. Like 31 other quarterbacks in the NFL would kill to have that time and have a guy that open.
I mean, when it's looking like Zach Wilson at BYU, when he had all day to throw from pristine pockets and guys running wide open, like, yeah. That's a good place to be for an NFL offense.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Zach Wilson, and the Eagles have the Jets coming up this weekend. And the Jets have one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL in Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, who's the lesser known guy, but he shouldn't be. He's a phenomenal player. If Brian Johnson called you tomorrow and said, Mark, I know you're good at this stuff. I'm a little under the weather. I'm going to bring you in, put you on the chalkboard, let you build this game plan out. How would you attack this Jets defense?
First of all, my response would be, Brian, somebody's lying to you. Call somebody a lot smarter than me. Call my buddy Shane. And Shane will get you taken care of.
I'm assuming you're talking about Shane Steichen there.
No, I'm talking about you, but Shane Steichen wouldn't be a bad player B either. You're right, though. Look, this is a defense that is good. This is a very good defense that you're going to see this week. You're talking about, like you said, they could get after you a little bit up front, right? Like this is a defense that has shown an ability to get after you up front, to sort of pressure you a little bit. They get a very good corner duo. One thing that I'd sort of be curious to see if they use this week, so sort of some, flip slots or inverted slots, however you want to term it, right? Where you've, instead of having, say, AJ Brown on the outside and Goddard on the inside, flip those two. Get Goddard on the outside. Gives you a couple of things, right? Gives you a coverage tell, right? If you get, Dallas Goddard on the numbers, AJ Brown or Smith inside of him in the slot, and Sauce Gardner's handing over your tight end, it's probably zone coverage. And if you're hurt, you're getting some information. So then you can go, okay, on this concept, I can get to my eyes to the zone beater. I can get my eyes to this part of the concept, and I'll know I'll get a pretty good shot at executing against it. If Sauce Gardner then has to come inside to cover his receiver, now you've got the benefit of the two-way go, and that's why, when we get into draft season and you start hearing guys say like, oh, this guy's a slot only in the NFL and it's not going to work, because, it's a little bit easier when you have that two-way go coming out of the slot. You get more room to work with. You can release inside or outside and still get into your route. It's a lot harder for a slot corner because, again, you're defending somebody that now has that two-way go, and you might want to try to force them to the outside, and they'll be okay with that because they can get into their route the same way. So wouldn't surprise me if you see some stuff like that. Try to get those corners playing in the slot. Try to get your best guys working out of the slot. Get them that two-way go against that corner duo. See if they sprinkle some of that in. Wouldn't surprise me to see some empty quick game stuff like you talked about. Look, this is a defensive front that can get pressure. They will bring blitzes. You'll get the ball out quickly. Then you might sprinkle in some of the max protection stuff I talked about. Okay, well, we'll go max protect 6-7. If they blitz, that's fine. We'll get it blocked up. We can get a shot play downfield, maybe with a check down if we need it. And so those are some of the things that I'd expect to see. Again, look, I'm just a guy sitting in his, basement here waiting to play video games later today. So who knows what I'm, if that's what they're going to do. But for where I sit, that would be some stuff to dial up.
Yeah. What's your video game of choice right now?
Starfield right now.
All right.
I've been waiting since we've known each other. I've been waiting for that game to come out. Bethesda has been teasing it, and it has been fantastic. There are days where I'll just like fly around this galaxy that they've built, this universe that they've built, and just like stare at like planets and moons. And it's, it's been super fun.
I have not played that one, but I know Dibes is a big Starfield guy. So
yeah, you and I have talked about that last draft season, how bad we like. It's funny. There have been numerous shows that I've been on where early in the conversation it gets derailed with, oh my God, I can't wait for Starfield to come out. And now most of those shows have gone dark because I get the sense that they do the show that they need to do. They're not going to have guests on. They're just going to get it done so they can get back to playing.
Yeah, maybe you guys should do a Starfield co-stream or something.
We actually talked about it. We talked about doing a Starfield show at one point.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, last question here, Mark, and I'll let you get out to the Galaxies. Same question this time, but now you're Jets offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. You're celebrating a victory over Sean Payton from last week. How are you going to construct this offense to go against an Eagles defense while you're working around a banged up offensive line? Elijah Vera Tucker on injured reserve now. Dwayne Brown is out. You're flipping everything around. You've got a rookie center playing right guard. It's just not ideal up front. And then you have Zach Wilson, a quarterback who, he's not great, is probably saying it nicely. He seems to wilt under pressure. It doesn't seem like a good matchup. What would you try to attack on this defense?
No, it doesn't seem like a good matchup. And it's funny, like everything that pops into my head, like, oh, well, offensive line is banged up and out of position. You want to go empty. You want to go quick game. You want to spread it out. Yeah, theoretically you can do that. But at the same time, when you've got guys out playing out of position, like that might not be the best thing. You might want to also say, look, we're going to go more max protect stuff. We're going to sort of condense things. Well, yeah, you could probably do that, but Garrett Wilson is then going to draw double, triple coverage when he's releasing into routes. Like, it seems like there are no easy answers right now for this Jets offense in terms of what they're facing this week and going forward with this banged up offensive line. I think you're probably going to want to, you might then say, well, shorten this game, right? Get it to grind it out, run the football. Okay, this is a very good run defense. Like, and you've got a banged up offensive line with guys playing out of position. Like, that might not be the answer. Like, so honestly, I don't know. I think if I had to sort of say where I'd lean my hat this week, empty, quick game, spread it out. Like, get the ball in and out of Zach Wilson's hands. Let him be a catch and release quarterback. Like, don't make him have to think too much. Like, some screens, some design plays, some half-field reads, like get the ball in and out of his hands quickly, minimize what that offensive line has to do up front, neutralize what the Eagles can do in their pass rush game, those twists and stunts, so guys can't get home in time. And hopefully you can break some tackles out, get some yardage after the catch. There are no easy answers, I think, for the Jets this week against this defense.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up here, Mark. That is my sixth and final question here. Before we get out of here, I just want to say thank you for joining the show. Tell the people where they can find your stuff. What do you got? Anything you got coming out that you want to plug? The floor is yours.
Well, Shane, it has been an honor to be back, my friend. Let's do it again soon. Easiest way, look, just sbnation.com. I don't know what I'm going to be writing today. Maybe some stuff on hockey, maybe some stuff on Phillies Braves, maybe some stuff on, what we're going to see tonight, Thursday night game between Denver and Kansas City. The last time the Chiefs lost to the Broncos, iPhone 7, I think, was the iPhone everybody had at the time. Like, it has been Peyton Manning was the last Broncos quarterback to beat the Chiefs. So that tells you where this rivalry has gone in the past couple of years. So might do something fun with that. We'll see. But SBNation.com, at Mark Schofield on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days. And Shane, buddy, always a blast. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Broncos might be better served to call Peyton Manning out of retirement for this one.
They certainly might.
All right. He is Mark Schofield. Be sure you give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Check out all of his stuff at sbnation.com. We're going to throw to a quick break, and then I'll be back for a short preview of the Eagles-Jets game. Stay tuned right here. I want to thank Mark for coming on to talk about the Eagles quarterback situation and about some of the quarterbacks the Eagles have faced in Matthew Stafford and ones they're about to face in Zach Wilson. So go check out all of his work on Twitter, on SB Nation podcast feed, and his written work on their website. He's one of the best Eagles, or one of the best quarterback minds out there. So be sure you check that out. Let's turn the page briefly to a Jets preview before we get out of here. Let's talk first Eagles offense against the Jets defense. And again, you guys know the drill. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a graphic on the screen with schematic tendencies and success rate. If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio platforms, you can go to my Twitter feed. I tweeted this out Wednesday morning, so you can go check that out there if you want to know what I'm referencing. But let's talk Eagles offense versus the Jets defense first. Quinnen Williams is a big guy to watch against the Eagles' interior offensive line. Now, he only has half a sack so far, but he has 29 pressures, which ranks 5th overall, and it's first among defensive tackles. Now, obviously, the Eagles just played Aaron Donald, who was not disruptive. But I mentioned before, they got 4 hands on Aaron Donald every single play. You can't necessarily do that against the Jets, who have a formidable defensive line with guys like Jermaine Johnson, a first-round pick last year, Will McDonald, a first-round pick this year, Bryce Huff, John Franklin Myers. They've got a lot of pass rushers that makes it harder to just double-team Quinnen Williams every play. Another thing to watch from their defense is going to be their cornerback duo, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. DJ Reed gets less credit than he should. He was ranked 11th in PFF coverage grade last year, while Sauce Gardner was first. This is an outstanding cornerback duo, probably the best duo in the NFL. Now, DJ Reed didn't play last week because of a concussion, but it's highly unlikely he's going to miss a second straight game with that concussion. So he hasn't cleared protocol yet as I record this on Wednesday morning. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time you hear this, he has been cleared to play. Now, DJ Reed is physically, he's small. He's only 5'9". He's 188 pounds, but he is physical. I would assume Sauce Gardner is going to follow A.J. Brown. One, because he's on a tear, 3 straight 100-yard games, while Devonta Smith hasn't had as much production. And also, too, just for size reasons, you're probably going to put Reed on Devonta Smith. So, by the way, this is not a gambling podcast, but Devonta Smith receiving yard overs, the line hasn't been set yet. If it's anything under like 70, 75 yards, I really like the over on that. I think the Eagles will try to get Devonta Smith involved early. We've seen that. When A.J. Brown was frustrated, they get him touches on the first drive. When Dallas Goedert has 88 yards in 4 games, they got him 4 touches on the first drive of the game, resulting in a touchdown. I think you could see that treatment for Devonta Smith this week, and he just has the more favorable cornerback matchup. So Devonta Smith receiving overs is a bet that I like. And you talk about the Eagles' rushing attack. The Jets have the 12th EPA rushing defense and the 15th DVOA rushing defense. So they're average against the run. I think what they're going to do, if I was them, they play a lot of light boxes. 59% of their snaps have been light boxes, which is the 6th highest rate in the NFL. They typically don't stack boxes, only on 14%. If I was the Jets, I would be stacking boxes, and I would try to live with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed being on an island against the Eagles receivers. So if that's what they do, the Eagles have to be able to make them pay for that. Also, weirdly, as a side note, the Eagles actually have a better rushing success rate running into stacked boxes at 52% than they do against light boxes at 43%. That's just a wild statistic, and it truly shows you how dominant the Eagles' offensive line has been, no matter what you try to do to stop it. So that's something to watch for. This is not a blitz-happy team. They only blitz on 16% of their snaps, so you should have a more traditional style of defense that you're facing this week. And as the Eagles have faced more traditional defenses the last 2 weeks, they've really had a lot of success. On the other side of the ball, the Jets offense against the Eagles defense, Breece Hall is averaging 7.2 yards per carry this season. Now the Eagles rush defense has been really good, but he is the best running back the Eagles will have faced so far. But again, he's running behind a really banged up offensive line. At the start of the season, the Jets had left tackle Dwayne Brown, who went on IR. And so they moved right tackle Mekhi Becton to left tackle. And then they moved their right guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, to right tackle. And so that put them inserting Joe Tippmann, a rookie center, at right guard. So we shuffled everything around. Then last week, Elijah Vera Tucker tore his Achilles. He's out for the year. So Max Mitchell came into the game at right tackle. And so the Eagles face this week a right tackle playing left tackle in Mekhi Becton, a rookie center playing right guard in Joe Tippmann, and a backup right tackle in Max Mitchell. So you should be able to get pressure on this team. And, Garrett Wilson is a stud receiver. Zach Wilson is not a good quarterback. He ranks 30th in EPA per play this season. And when under pressure, remember, the offensive line is not in a good spot. The Eagles' pass rush is great. When under pressure, Zach Wilson is completing only 41.5% of his passes this year for 4.4 yards per attempt. He is also not a quick game passer. He's not going to get the ball out. His 3.05 time to throw this season is the 4th longest in the NFL behind Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Deshaun Watson. So he's going to hold the ball. The Jets do not do things to try to really help him out. They're 29th in pre-snap motion. They're 24th in play action. They're 19th in screen usage. They're 31st in quick game, short dropbacks. This is not a team that does a whole lot to help him out. And I just don't think you can make a living against this Eagles defense just trying to run a traditional drop back passing game with Zach Wilson. So I think this is a game where the Eagles are going to roll. I do not think the Jets are going to be able to get anything going offensively. I think the Eagles are finding their stride as an offense. So I think the Eagles roll. This is going to be their biggest margin of victory so far this season. I've got the Eagles winning 31-7 in this one. So that's my preview of the Eagles Jets. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you enjoy this episode of the EPA podcast, show Mark Schofield some love on Twitter. It's always great to have him on and be able to talk with him. Be sure you're subscribed here to the BGN feed, whether you're on YouTube or the BGN radio feed. You'll get all the BGN shows, BGN radio, Babes on Broad, Eye on the Enemy. We'll be back on Sunday evening for the instant reaction show after the game. So keep it tuned right here to the BGN radio feed. Go Birds.